Well, with all that said, Madrid is going to play in a European Cup final. Well, I mean, the EuroLeague, the one we wanted to leave, by the way, to go to the NBA thing. And in the end, we were left alone. I don't know what's going to happen in the end, but anyway, we'll leave that for another day. Welcome, Madridistas. How are you? Let's go for the 12th. Madrid has 11 European Cups in basketball, whether it's the old European Cup or the EuroLeague. Well, we're dominant here too, right? And they beat Valencia Basket 105-90 in the semi-final of this Final Four, and will face the Greeks again, man. Olympiacos, a tough team. And there's also been some bad news for Madrid, which is Garuba's injury. And well, anyway, more injuries in basketball too. And it's a real problem not having this guy who's very important to the basketball team. But I'm not going to pretend to know more about basketball. You already know I only know the basics, just the bare minimum. But of course, we had to start with this because we're going to play another continental final. And speaking of continental finals, and a guy who was really important, especially in one of them, the second one, no, because he was injured, right? Even though that's the one that Alaba is posing with here, good old Alaba, we'll always remember him with the famous chair. Well, today, Real Madrid. We didn't mention it in the last video because when I made it that morning, Real Madrid hadn't released their statement yet. And as a recap of what happened today, that's it, right? The Austrian footballer and Real Madrid have agreed to end his time as a player at the White Club, and that's it. He's getting a farewell too, since we're discussing Carvajal's farewell, but it's also Alava's. It's Alava's farewell, it's Arbeloa's farewell, also as a coach of Real Madrid. And watch out, because Ceballos should be getting a farewell too, even though he's under contract. Ceballos, who posted on Instagram today, well, the man saying goodbye there, I was going to look for it. I don't have it here. But anyway, if you look for it, you'll find it there on Instagram saying goodbye to Real Madrid staff. Of course, since a new coaching staff is coming in, I mean, he's not saying goodbye because he's leaving, although I think he's going to leave, right? Ceballos. Let's see how we sell Ceballos. That's another thing. We're not making it easy for ourselves either because, well, Arbeloa and Ceballos have had a terrible falling out this year, and he won't be at that farewell either. Because Arbeloa already said, well, he hinted at it, he never said it directly, that Ceballos wasn't going to be called up anymore, right? He used euphemisms, but we all understood, and it's been an ugly situation. But not on Arbeloa's side. We just don't know what Ceballos did. We can't even imagine it. I mean, there are people who say that, well, he's the one leaking information, that he's the mole, and so on, you know, but it's going to be strange. I'm remembering when Benzema and Asensio said goodbye on the same day against Athletic Club de Bilbao, exactly 3 years ago now. Atletico. I don't know if Mariano was also saying goodbye that day. Was Mariano also saying goodbye that day? I think so. Or hey, maybe I'm wrong, but there was a farewell. Well, one of those because or Vallejo last year, right? Well, hey, of course, here in terms of importance, I feel a bit sorry for Ceballos because although he hasn't lived up to expectations at Real Madrid, we hoped for more. Hey, Ceballos arrived in the summer of 17. It's been 9 years of this guy at Madrid. For him to leave like that is a bit strange. He never really won us over. He never won our hearts because we always saw that he was a footballer who maybe had a good run, then got injured, then something else happened. He was also loaned to Arsenal back then, but I can't recall if it was for 1 or 2 years. And, well, he would come in and out. But I don't know, maybe at least let the man get there and get applauded at midfield. But you also don't know how the fans are going to react, right? Because there's been a bit of an issue with Ceballos for a long time, so he's not one of the most loved players, right? I believe people will treat Alaba very well in tomorrow's match against Athletic Club de Bilbao. And let's not even talk about Carvajal because there's a lot. Let's see what happens on social media. And I can tell you these days, what happens on social media is not real life. It's part of real life, but it's not all of real life. And I think, well, at the Bernabeu, come on, there will be a standing ovation for Carvajal and Alaba. But we're talking about Carvajal because, you know, right? Everything that's happened on social media. But it couldn't be any other way, right? Well, look at this. 2 tweets today. Incredible ones. Really incredible. This first one, the CTA, well, tweets with their information, right? From Archivo Bar. The CTA fears the imminent return of Mourinho. And I'm not even going to get into it. I said on Twitter that they lived better when their vice president was paid by Barcelona. Now, with Mourinho coming in, the problem is obviously Mourinho. We're going to link it with another tweet, which I think is another post within the same news story. There's concern in the referees committee, which is just unbelievable. Now, look, the fear within the referees committee is that Jose Mourinho will use the Negreira case to create an extremely aggressive scenario for the referees, but let's see. So, the concern isn't about punishing the club that paid its vice president 8.4 million over 20 years, but about what Mourinho is going to say now. I hope he says something, by the way. We've discussed this in the previous video and before. Mourinho was quiet at Fenerbahce and Roma. He didn't have to do it. He didn't have to give his opinion about the Negreira issue. But man, besides, he was also the one who, in a way, brought it up back in the day. He's a Madrid fan since Mourinho has Madrid in his heart, and now he's returning. I always said this guy needs to say something, even just a sentence. I missed that. I mentioned it during the match against Benfica. They're asking about Negreira and Barca. Well, he could have just smiled and said, do you remember? Do you remember what he used to say back in the day? And just by saying that, and then they ask him, what did you say? What did you say, Mo? Stuff like that. I don't know. What do you think now? No. Just saying, we Madrid fans would have liked that, but he didn't give us the pleasure. Now, someone will say, he won't give it to you. It's typical. There's always someone who says that. No, I think some Madrid fans would have liked it. Now, I think he really will say it. And of course, they're shaking. And this press, even more so when it comes to Mourinho, right? Because what needs to be done indeed is to bring this to the table. But come on, as much as possible. And keep pushing and keep going and going. But careful, let's not get confused either. If they call a throw in against us and we complain, I'm not in favor of that either, because we're going to end up diverting attention. But reminding them about Negreira, of course, until they finally punish Barca. Now, I find it unbelievable, and we'll talk about it in the next video. Look, I think a Twitter user has compiled all the things Laporta has said and done about the referees in the last 2 or 3 years. Because of which this referees association, which is not the CTA, but many referees who are in the CTA are part of this referees association, which has reported Florentino to the competition committee and to the, what was it? I don't remember anymore, right? Also to the anti-xenophobia and anti-racism body in football and all that, and against Real Madrid and Real Madrid television. It's crazy. And you say, well, where were these people when Gilmarin released his statements? Where were they when Laporta made his comments? Anyway, Florentino just limited himself to saying what a judge had written by hand in the court documents. It's true that later he embellished it a bit, saying, well, he embellished it, but it's something we all agree on, right? Florentino said the other 7 were stolen from him. Of course, sure, but still, they latch onto that. But honestly, it's incredible. The fear inside the CTA, the fear inside the CTA, or the concern inside the CTA should be, hey, there was a club here that bribed one of our bosses and gave us a bad image. Well, we can go back to that whole line of, no, we didn't do anything. Yeah, you guys did it because you knew how one of the bosses who was getting that money from the clubs wanted you to referee. But that club has stained your reputation. It's just that the concern of the referees and the concern of the CTA, both the previous one and this one, many are still there, including referees who had coaching sessions with Negreira's son. It should be, of course, to say, well, why aren't these guys facing sporting consequences? Sorry. No, yes, it's in court, okay? And here there's a law that made it time barred. No, sorry. It's just that if the Royal Spanish Football Federation, which the CTA is part of, did its job and told UEFA, look, in Spain it couldn't be done because of the sports law, but UEFA, can you do something? Because it's incomprehensible that this club is still competing, but we already know how this works. If Barca goes down, well, it would be a disappointment for the federation and a disappointment for the league. That's why they don't do anything. That's why I want to remind you again about Garcia Diaz, whom I had forgotten, and the great work of Juan Luis Martín de Pozuelo, Ricardo Ramón Nera, Tomás Rubio, and everyone else collaborating there. Anyway, Collins, well, everyone who is collaborating, Ramón Álvarez de Mont, of course, all of us who are collaborating. And there are many people, well, Gabriel Carreras, who is the one who made the website, and I don't want to forget. You know what? I won't forget someone who's always there and very attentive. There are just so many people. I insist, for example, there's Sergio Lebra, whose name I had forgotten. Sergio Lebra, who's there at La Galerna, and every day in the group we share, giving it his all. There's also Dato Mata Matarelato, HD Elena, by the way. And well, there are a lot of people. We're there. A lot of people. We're there doing our part. And well, let's move on to those who don't want me to talk about this anymore. You can leave. No, just kidding. I don't want anyone to leave, even though some have left lately. Let's take it with a bit of humor, right? The thing this afternoon really caught my attention, man. The fact that the big Spanish banks have refused to provide the financial guarantee for the candidacy of the president of Cox, Enrique Riquelme, to run in the Real Madrid elections. Those who think, those who do. Keep thinking. I explained it in my video yesterday and in the following video. But those who keep thinking what they've been thinking, since I've already received a lot of messages, you're a crook. I don't know what. Their brains are going to short circuit when they hear what I'm about to say, right? Especially with the last video we're going to see in this video, if you'll pardon the redundancy, which I found really funny and which, in my opinion, doesn't leave this gentleman's candidacy in a good light. And there are things, it's true that there are things that are causing a lot of concern regarding the candidacy of this gentleman, for whom I have never asked for your vote. In fact, you've already seen me in videos saying that the red line is Tebas, Negreira, Laporta, this guy, Gil Marin. And if there's even a slight approach with these people and it's not clear, they don't have my vote. I'm a member and I can vote, and I know what Florentino thinks about that, but I don't know what this man thinks about it. However, then there are some things that maybe make me a little more uncertain about Florentino. I'm not going to say that this man we're still getting to know inspires much confidence either, but I don't know. Florentino at the press conference really threw me off, sorry to say. Well, let's get to the point. So the big Spanish banks have refused to back Enrique Riquelme's candidacy. And some might say, so is he not running? Wait. Enrique Riquelme's candidacy will be presented tomorrow with a full guarantee from Antbank España. Antbank España, the subsidiary of the Andorran bank, with a banking license from the Bank of Spain, just as required by Real Madrid's regulations. Because someone has said, no, you can't do it with a foreign bank. Well, there are banks that are foreign, that have subsidiaries here in Spain, and they are indeed part of it. I don't know what to call it because I don't know exactly how to say it, but within the scope of the Bank of Spain. Let's put it that way. Or as it says here, with a banking license from the Bank of Spain, right? Well, Santander and BBVA refused to provide the bank guarantee for Riquelme so he could run in those elections against Florentino Perez. So I'm asking you because I have no idea, because there are a lot of people here who say things, man. Yeah, it really makes me laugh because these days, well, they've really given me a hard time. But what about today? I was talking about it with someone, I'm not going to tell you who, and they said, but Ison, but have you seen some of the things that certain YouTubers or communicators or people on X are saying, making really serious accusations, really serious ones? Why is this one with that other one and this one? For example, there's that old line about, and Florentino controls the media. No, excuse me. Florentino has wanted to remove newspaper editors. He has wanted to remove people in the media. Yeah, damn it, we know. Let's not play dumb. Come on. Of course. Florentino now, maybe not so much, but the young Florentino who started out, damn, he was something else. Of course, of course. Now then, does Florentino control Marca? No. Does Florentino control AS? Even less. Florentino? No. Of course, El Confidencial has been at odds with Florentino for a long time. By the way, Florentino won that trial about the audio recordings, so no, he doesn't control it either, and many others don't either. Not even ABC, even though his father made him read ABC and was going to cancel the ABC subscription. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you. Well, so that's it. But another thing they usually say is that Florentino had, here he controlled half of Spain. I mean, all of Spain, the power in Spain, right? Political power, economic power. And you say, look, now we're going to talk about the PSOE and the people in the government. There are ministers there every day in the Real Madrid box. Because Florentino, but they're from the PSOE, and there have been people from the PP, and there are people from both PSOE and PP. Florentino is very political there, which makes sense since he was once a politician. I didn't start out in politics. Right? And he knows he has to get close to whoever he has to, even if maybe being next to someone from one side or the other makes him uncomfortable. But Florentino does this. I don't know if it's a good thing because maybe I wouldn't have the stomach for it. But anyway, the president of Real Madrid is a very important figure. Okay, but controlling the banks, I mean, do you guys really think so? Do you really think so? I wouldn't dare to say for sure. I just find it really strange that this guy, I mean, he has a successful company. Someone will probably comment, no, because of renewables and whatever. But honestly, the whole renewables thing has never really appealed to me. We do need renewable energy, though. Of course, there's been an incredible scam where a lot of people have gotten really rich because they've drilled this into our heads. And I think it's been exaggerated for a long time, to the point that we even had a blackout in Spain because of it. Just keep adding more and more renewables, right? The others pollute, damn it, boom. But anyway, someone will also tell me, no, it wasn't because of that. Okay, fine, but are they needed? Yes, they are. Has there been exaggeration? Yes, there has. Have some people gotten rich? Yes, they have. Has Enrique gotten rich from this? Well, yes, but also it's probably because he's a great businessman and not just because of that, right? And not just because of that. So it really catches my attention that these banks, if a guy comes in with 187 million and they tell him, no, no, not here. Damn, that's strange, isn't it? It's strange. It's strange. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm not going to dare to say for sure that Florentino has some influence there, that he told them, don't give this guy anything. I just don't know. I really don't know. But of course, it does make you think about certain things. Well, and then this thing that really made me laugh, and my friend Ricardo sent it to me. I had already seen it somewhere before. But anyway, since he sent it to me on, what's it called? On Instagram. Look, this is Juan Soto Ibars. Who else is he with? With the people he does this episode with, precisely in ABC, with Rebecca Argudo and, well, Alfonso J. Ucia, who I don't know if he's the son of Alfonso Ucia. I guess he is, right? Honestly, I don't know, but I imagine he is. Well, pay attention to what he says. And for those outside of Spain, I'll explain a bit to you now. Wait, just a moment. Just a moment. I haven't played it for you. Sorry.
Yes, in that way, Rosauro Pablo.
He says, it seems like Riquelme is close to Pedro Sanchez, which is giving me the hives right now. But anyway, just so you see, then there are those who think, no, how does Enrique Riquelme pay you and so on? Well, look at what I'm putting up now, right? And what I'm saying, right? If they're trying to buy me off, they're doing a terrible job. I insist. For those who have just arrived, what is Miguel Serrano talking about? There's a video explaining everything that's happened in the last few days. 800 people have left. People from this channel, maybe they just weren't supposed to be here. So anyway, thank you so much to those of you who are still sticking around. Well, he's just explaining here that they want to PSOE-ize Madrid. PSOE-ize Madrid.
This guy, the son-in-law of Ignacio Sanchez Galan, this guy from Cox, who has resigned. And at the center is this guy, Carlos Ocaña, who is the one that wrote Pedro Sanchez's thesis. No!
It just can't be. It can't be. Well, the one who wrote that book, Manual de Resistencia, was the one Pedro Sanchez appointed. I can't remember her name right now. Maybe one of you will put it in the comments, as Secretary of State for Sports, okay? But of course, I didn't know she wrote his thesis. That's what this guy is saying, and he's apparently the guy who's running with Enrique Riquelme. Damn, man.
How cool. I love open-minded guys. Advisor. Wow. At Indra, representing CEPI, and Vice President of Telefonica. So they want to bring Real Madrid under PSOE influence. I mean, man, I said it. You said it poetically, but you said it. I said it too, but now I don't dare. The other day I had to return to Real Madrid, as we discussed. We used to use allegories. But today I'm doing it bluntly, because that's how things are. Today I'm doing it bluntly, that's it. So look, I mean...
That the Pero is very beautiful.
Of Florentino has tried to be brought under PSOE influence. Real Madrid is trying. Real Madrid has been an institution, which is an institution, I think it is for the monarchy, Real Madrid and ABC. For me, they are the three great institutions of this country. And I would add the Civil Guard. Yes, but that's already part of the monarchy.
And the Civil Guard.
Of such, you know? And the Civil Guard, of course. And the PSOE is trying to colonize the ones they were missing. They've done everything else. And the Leganés City Council. End of the line, literally, well.
Here they're already moving on to other topics. For those outside Spain, let's just say the PSOE isn't having its best moment right now. Let's leave it at that. I run a politics channel with Frank Carrillo. Just like the PP didn't go through its best moment back in the day, which someone will probably write in the comments, right? Those paid a political price and these still haven't paid one. And they're still there, right? Ruining the country as the other would say. But anyway, the thing is that things aren't going very well right now. I don't know. They're not having a great time. And of course, this is a bit scary. Wow. If someone tells me about someone there, some references I've received say the opposite. They're anti-PSOE, completely the opposite, right? So, well, I don't know. Since I don't know, I just don't know. But this man says this. And I'm very wary of politics there at Real Madrid. Anyway, and this is about to end. At Real Madrid, I imagine, and it's the most normal thing, you have to get along with everyone, the political parties and so on. But damn, if in a candidacy there are people who have had a lot of connection with the other one, who wrote his thesis for him, who knows what else, they're all gonna. They start to make me very suspicious. That's why it would be good for this man to speak and try to convince the club members and listen to him, and also to Florentino. But I don't think there's going to be a debate. Mark my words. I don't think Florentino is going to agree to a debate. Not a chance. Not a chance. Well, we'll see. Anyway, all the best to you. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to the channel, comment, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.